What happens when you transport wine in summer, in a car, in a van or a truck? When it goes through high temperatures and lower temperatures, is it going to destroy its quality if you buy some wine in your summer holidays and you happen to have to transport it in a car, or if it travels in a van being delivered to your door? This is what we're talking about today. This is what we're tasting today. I made my own experiment during my own personal holiday, summer vacations, I should say. I've transported some wine around France and we're going to find out what happens. Hello, bonjour, my fellow wine-loving friends, and welcome to your new Bonheur Private Wines video brought to you by the best wine club in America. So, what are we tasting today? What are we discussing today? I was just a week ago on a trip to the north of France, all across France. I live in the south where it's very, very hot, and I took a bottle of wine with me. Essentially, I bought two of the exact same wine. One stayed here in my cool, very cool studio where I film my videos, where it's normal room temperature, and the other one traveled with me in my car. So it went about 700 miles from the south of France to the beaches of Normandy. This wine has seen some of the most beautiful sights that we have in France, the Mont Saint-Michel. It's seen the D-Day landings, the beaches of Normandy, and it's seen, more importantly, a lot of heat during the day on parking lots and less heat during the night. So it's gone through quite a few different cycles. It's also gone through one particularly very, very hot day on a parking lot in the trunk, as you say in America, the boot of my car. The day was, I believe, 95 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the car was in full-blown sunlight. So I think it heated that day particularly well, and we have evidence that it's seen some heat, because you can definitely tell that the cork has been pushed up a little bit by the expansion of the wine inside the bottle. So I think this wine went up 100 degrees and probably a little more in the car. So I want to find out if it's made a difference to the wine. I want to find out if you can buy some wine, if you visit France or Europe and you buy some wine and you happen to travel with it around Europe, for example, or the United States, but also if you order some wine online, for example, and it's shipped to your door during summer. It's transported in a truck and in a van or across the United States. Generally, most wine merchants, including the Bonheur Wine Club partnership, our wine club, we avoid shipping wine during summer for this exact reason. But I wanted to find out for myself what happens if you transport this wine, I traveled for about 10 days. And it was, as I said, pretty hot. Then Normandy is not the hottest climate that we have, but on our way down we had some really seriously hot days, and as I said, it was early August, so it gets pretty warm and hot all across France. So this wine has seen some heat. Let's start with our control wine. So this wine that I just bought a few weeks ago and that I left here in normal temperatures. This is a bottle wine. The vintage is 2022, based on Cabernet Sauvignon with some Merlot. Let's taste. We have some really nice spicy fruit, definitely Cabernet Sauvignon, Cassis or black currant aromas, also some Merlot, which you can tell is it gives a lot of dark cherries, really fruity, red berries, also some spices, red pepper, green pepper, so really fruity, also spicy, a little bit of chocolate, dark coffee, really interesting nose. Let's taste. Interesting, a decent bottle wine. This is a wine that I bought here for around 15 euros, so that would be sold in the US at around $25-30. So decent Bordeaux wine, it's not a high level Bordeaux wine, this is a Bordeaux wine that you have on a little special occasion that you could find at your local wine shop. A medium level, let's call it, Bordeaux wine. Good quality, but not overly expensive or super high quality either. And you can tell from tasting it, it's spicy, it's fruity, it's got a nice tannic structure, but it's not extremely dense. This is a fairly approachable Bordeaux wine meant to be drunk with some meats and some good foods, but it's not the super high-end wine. So the tasting gives me a ton of fresh red berries characters, and that's what's gonna be interesting to taste. Is the cooked wine has as much red berries? Is it fresher, or has it got more cooked fruit, prunes or dried fruit characters? This one is definitely on the more red berry side. There is a little bit of plum on the flavor side, a lot of spices as well, really fresh green pepper spices, a little touch of green bell pepper as well, which is quite typical of Cabernet Sauvignon in fairly cool climates such as Bordeaux. So, enough talking about this wine. Now I want to open our next wine that has been transported for a week and that's seen some of the most beautiful places, one of my best vacations so far, and see if the wine is any different. So of course this is not a purely scientific experiment, this is going to be anecdotal evidence, but I definitely was interested for myself to see if just 1 week of transport in summer could really change the characteristic of a good wine, and a fairly good French dense Bordeaux wine in particular, because obviously those Bordeaux wines or some fairly serious wines have tannic concentration, they have a fairly solid structure, which in principle protects them from oxidation and some of the changes that heat can give. If you have a simpler wine that is cheap, it's obviously going to evolve and be changed way more dramatically and quicker. At least that's my belief. Than a more serious, more concentrated wine that is a bit more stable, because a Bordeaux wine like this can age in theory over time in your cellar for around 10, 15, 20 years and still be pretty good. Obviously if it's a cheap wine, it's not going to last for that long, and so more expensive, more serious wines in principle are a bit more solid, more harder to break down by time or by heat in principle. So I'm curious to find out. Let's see. Do we have a difference in color? I can't really see any difference in color. It hasn't lost any of its color apparently, or at least not much of a change there. Yeah, maybe. It's definitely on the same spectrum of aromas here. I do have mixed red berries. It seems a little more tamed, a little less vibrant indeed. Yeah, there's a bit of that. It feels a bit more tamed. The red berries on our control wine, the red berries seems really fresh, like you've just crushed blueberries in making a smoothie, and it's really vibrant. Here you do have the blueberry flavors, but they seem a little less excited to jump out of the glass, is my impression. I could be just tricking myself. It's not huge, massive difference, but yes, I can see, I can smell that it's a bit tamed. But the flavors, the profile, the spectrum of aromas so far is quite similar. The red berries are there, the black pepper is there, the chocolate is there. It also seems to me that those different flavors are a bit melted together. The blueberries and the chocolate and the spices seem a bit less obvious and less separated. They seem a little more melted together, less shining, again less excited to jump out of the glass. So a little difference here, but it's not massive. Let's see on the palate. Okay, yeah, again on the palate here, it seems to me that the wine is a bit softer actually. It's a bit rounder, a bit smoother. Let me taste the control wine a second time to find out and to really make sure I've got the correct words and the correct impressions. Yes, indeed, I think I found the difference. Yes, the wine that's been heated and that traveled with me for a little while has had its sharp and a bit harsh tannins rounded up. I believe the control wine is a bit crisper on the palate, a little bit harsher. It has a little bit more vivacity, which is something that I like. Don't forget, this is a 2022 Bordeaux wine, so fairly young, so it's got some youth and vivacity, some liveliness to it in the tannins. That's for the control wine. The wine that's traveled is rounder, a little more mellow, and has a bit less character for that reason. The flavors are really similar, if only a little less vibrant again, a little less definition to the different types of flavors, but the profile is really similar. So, a conclusion. Well, I was somewhat expecting a bigger difference, I have to admit, especially after that really hot day where I touched this wine that was in the trunk and it was so warm, or not hot, but pretty warm, something that I hate seeing in general. I wouldn't want a touch a bottle of wine that feels so warm. So I knew this wine had gone through really high temperatures, and as I said, it traveled thousands or hundreds and hundreds of miles, which is again something that I don't normally do. I actually quite hate having wine in the back of my car. So I was expecting a bigger difference. That's it. As I said, I know that those wines are pretty serious and they're pretty big and they built to age really well. I'm a trained Bordeaux winemaker myself. I've made Bordeaux wine exactly like this one, and I know the effort that goes from the winemaking perspective, the winery, into making those wines pretty stable and able to age for 10-15 years, so they can withstand. I'm not that surprised to see that they can withstand a week or a week and a half, even in summer, going through quite a lot of hellish conditions. It changes the wine. It's probably lost a few years of aging potential, but actually it's kind of aged maybe 2 or 3 years, which in itself is not such a bad thing if you're talking about a young wine like this one. So yes, we've lost some definition, we've lost a bit of freshness, but it's not dramatically changed either the tannic structure, the feeling, the balance, the palate, texture of the wine, or it hasn't changed the aromatic profile completely dramatically. Yes, it's aged a little bit, not necessarily in a very good way, but it's not been ruined. And I believe this is perhaps a little bit of a myth that just a few days of shipping or heat can totally destroy a wine. If it's a really good wine to start with, in general, it's not going to ruin it in a couple of days or even a week or 10 days. And I'm quite happily surprised to see that it's actually not the case. Wines like those are built to be stable, even going through pretty harsh conditions. I'm glad that it's proven this anecdotally today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like, share it with your fellow wine-loving friends that might be interested, subscribe if you're not, and now we'll see you soon in a wonderful world of wine. Cheers.